Bald Yoda has just dropped a chip in the fucking turbo inlet. Did it really go in there?
I think so, but I can't see it.
So I've had the GT86 for about a year now, nearly a year, and obviously we put the turbo on it fairly soon after I got it, and that's been running at about 11 psi, 0.8 bar, which I think is about 11 psi. Now it's fast enough with the turbo set up the way it is. It's pretty quick, it's fun to drive, and I do wish they'd come with the turbo standard because it really does change the car. But the long-term goal has always been to add a bit more power, go a bit more crazy with it really. I mean, I bought this car to modify it a lot, so let's go a bit more crazy and see how far we can push it really. So before we can increase the boost on the turbo with the boost controller, we need to strengthen the engine really. You can just whack the boost up and see what happens, but stuff's probably going to break, and I'd rather preemptively strengthen things instead of just breaking them and fixing them afterwards, because that's not a good way of handling things. So what we're going to do is get some forged rods, forged pistons. The pistons are going to be a lower compression ratio as well, which maybe I'll explain in a separate video. I don't want to kind of bog this intro down with too much explanation, but basically stronger parts, stronger valve springs as well, and a lower compression ratio, which will then mean we can up the boost considerably and hopefully not have any problems. Now we've already put stronger drive shafts in, which can handle up to 600 brake. I think I mentioned that earlier. I can't remember because I've refilmed this like 9 times, but whatever. But yeah, so there's going to be a few parts to this little mini series, I guess. So this first one, we're probably just going to be taking the engine out and taking it down to the guy who's doing it. Then we'll have a second part, maybe a third part. I guess, yeah, second part of us putting it back in, and then a third part of getting it mapped and then, you know, explaining what it's like after it's been mapped, first impressions and all that good stuff. So yeah, enjoy. I've ordered the parts, so pretty much now all we've got to do is just wait for them to turn up. Look what turned up today. Some nice forged pistons, some nice forged conrods. Doing this with one hand was not the best idea. One of these beauties. Oof. Nice Carrillo conrods. And 10:1 compression ratio Carrillo pistons. So yeah, cool stuff. A few other bits, head stud bolts, uprated spark plugs, head gaskets, more gaskets and uninteresting stuff in there. And we've also got stronger valve springs. So they're going to get put in at the same time. And there's this oil pump gear as well, which is supposed to let a little bit more oil through each time it pumps it round. So that should help with cooling a little bit, although there's some debate on the forums as to how much that'll help, but whatever, hopefully it'll be better than nothing. Okay, so we've got all the parts, and Bald Yoda is on his way round, so let's get started. Anyway, we're getting somewhere. We've got the air intake off that comes from the turbo, and the air intake that goes to the turbo, and that's pretty much it so far really, isn't it? And we drained all the coolant. Coolant is gone. It's just chilling. What next?
Stuff.
How many more belt housing bolts we got left?
One on top of the starter, one on the bottom of the starter.
Sweet! And then we're pretty much done, aren't we?
After this one. Yeah. Yeah, why not?
Why not? Just lift it out, see what comes with it. So now we're taking the flywheel off. No, not the flywheel, the clutch cover plate. Because why are we taking this off again? Oh yeah, to fit it on this engine stand. So little adapter things don't fit otherwise. Okay, we've just found as well, when we've taken the clutch off the back of the flywheel, we've just found that it's quite worn down. It's only these bits that actually contact the flywheel and actually grip at all. So they're the only bits we're bothered about. And they're quite worn. Yeah, you can see they're almost completely worn down to the metal bits that are holding them on. So yeah, going to replace the clutch while we're here as well. May as well, they're not that expensive in the grand scheme of things. I mean, this clutch only got put in about 7 or 8 months ago or something like that. But it does get a lot of abuse. Like, all the drifting and stuff that I've done just involves a lot of clutch kicks, doing burnouts and donuts and things. You just, a lot of the time, you're like building the revs up to like maximum revs and then just dumping the clutch. This thing gets hammered. So it's done well to last this long, I think. Okay, so this is something that actually got damaged as a result of the crash. Not directly in the crash, but it's an intercooler pipe that comes from the turbo to the intercooler. It was not quite secured properly. This part up here wasn't secured properly when I first went to start the engine up again after the chassis had been sorted out. And it just started rattling against one of the pulleys, in fact, that pulley right there. And it just smashed against it over and over again, which sounded horrendous. And did all that damage. It's still functional, so I didn't replace it at the time, but I've got a replacement one now. So while everything's out, we'll replace this as well. Okay, so the next task we've got to do is strip a few bits off the engine before we take it down to the guy who's going to be building it. So we can take off the ECU, the alternator, what's that, the aircon pump, yep, oil filter, probably leave, but inlet manifold, we can take all that off, so then we should be left with pretty much everything just from like there down. So yeah, let's get cracking.
So I finally made it, guys. I know what you're thinking. These guys are just going to mess it up without me. So I'm here now to tell them what I've done wrong. And
Tell you what we've done wrong. We took the fucking engine apart.
yeah, that was mistake number one.
It ain't going back together.
What's broke?
That's
Oh,
broke. Yeah, it's not good, is it?
Oh, that looks quite substantial.
Yeah,
as well.
I know.
Yeah, there's little bits of cable like hanging.
Right, final state then, I guess, for today. Well, we're pretty much done, aren't we? We can stick it in the back of the van now and take it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing we broke, I mean, Si broke this bit.
I broke nothing. I was Snapchat.
I broke that bit. So I need to get a new one of them from Toyota, which we think is a crank position sensor. Not so crank, a cam position sensor.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
I don't know.
It's on the end of the cam.
That's the level of guessing
Yeah.
what's going on.
So yeah, I guess next thing will just be sticking it in the back of the van and driving it down. Okay, so the new clutch has actually turned up already, which was pretty quick. I only ordered it like 2 days ago, so thank you very much, Fensport, for quick delivery. And you can see it's a fair bit thicker. It's not a massive amount thicker, but it is thicker than the old one. Let's see. Don't know how well you can see that on this camera at all. Okay, I think that'll do for this first video. We've got the engine out, obviously. We've stripped everything off it. I've sent pictures to the guy who's building the engine, and he says it's absolutely fine to bring it to him like that. So, yeah, we're good to go. Now, it's going to be a while until we get the engine back, because I'm not taking it down to him until next week, and then there's Christmas and New Year and stuff. It's probably going to be like the 2nd or 3rd week in January by the time we actually come to put it back in. So, you've got a while to wait for the next video, but yeah. The next actual video that we're going to upload is going to be a Christmas-related one in the GT86 before we took the engine out. So, yeah, look forward to that. But don't get too excited. It's not that great.